It was supposed to be just another quiet evening for billionaire Richard Langston. Dinner on the patio, the city skyline glowing in the distance, and his elegant wife Sarah smiling across the table. Everything looked perfect. The wine was poured, the steak cooked just the way he liked it. But just as he lifted his fork, a voice cut through the night, shaky, urgent, and completely out of place. "Don't eat that." The words came from a boy no older than 12, barefoot, dirty, standing at the edge of the garden with wide, terrified eyes. Richard froze. Security rushed toward the boy, but something in the kid's voice made him pause. "Please," the boy cried, "your wife put poison in your food." Gasps followed. Sarah's expression flickered. Was it shock, fear, or something else? In that instant, the world seemed to stop. Who was this boy? How did he know anything about Richard and Sarah? And why would a homeless child show up just in time to warn him of something so unthinkable? The story that follows will take you on a journey full of twists, secrets, and unexpected connections. Because behind that one desperate warning is a truth far deeper than anyone imagined. What brought this boy to the billionaire's door that night wasn't just chance, it was fate. Stay with us, because what happens next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about trust, loyalty, and the power of a single voice. The security guards hesitated, unsure whether to grab the boy or wait for Richard's signal. Richard slowly set down his fork, his eyes locked on the trembling kid. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The boy's hands shook as he pointed to the plate. She told someone on the phone. "I heard her say she was tired of pretending. That you had to go. I followed her here. I swear I'm telling the truth." Sarah stood up quickly, her face pale. "This is insane," she said, forcing a laugh. Where did this child even come from? But there was something off in her voice, a slight crack that didn't go unnoticed. Richard had everything: money, power, respect. But tonight, none of that seemed to matter. All he could think about was the strange look in his wife's eyes and the fear in that boy's voice. How did this homeless kid know so much? What did he mean by pretending? And why now? The boy looked like he hadn't eaten in days. His clothes were torn, his face smudged with dirt, but his eyes were sharp, too sharp for someone his age. He wasn't here for food or money. He was here with a warning. But how did he know Sarah? Richard's mind raced. 1,000 questions and no answers. Still staring at the boy, he asked quietly, "What's your name?" The boy took a step forward. "Eli," he whispered, "and I know everything." Richard didn't take his eyes off Eli. The boy's voice was calm now, but his body was still tense, like he was ready to run at any second. Sarah crossed her arms, trying to keep her cool. "This is ridiculous," she said. "He's just some street kid trying to get attention." But Richard wasn't so sure. Something about this didn't feel random. Eli didn't look scared of being caught. He looked scared of being ignored. Richard waved off the guards and nodded. Let him speak. Eli took a deep breath. "I used to sleep behind the hotel near the marina," he said, voice shaking a little. "That's where I saw her. She met someone there every Thursday. A man in a gray car. They talked for a long time. I never listened, not until last week." He glanced at Sarah, then back at Richard. "That's when I heard her say your name. And the word poison." Sarah's jaw clenched. "You're going to believe some kid who's probably been sniffing glue in an alley over your own wife." She snapped. But Richard's silence said everything. What Sarah didn't know was that Richard had been suspicious for weeks. Small things, phone calls she took in the other room, the secretive texts, the sudden interest in his schedule. And now this boy, Eli, knew details no one should. But who was the man in the gray car? Was Sarah really planning something, or was this a twisted setup? And why did Eli care enough to get involved? Nothing added up, and the deeper Richard looked, the darker the truth seemed to get. The silence stretched between them, thick with uncertainty. Richard's gaze flicked from Sarah's now tight-lipped expression to Eli's anxious face. He could feel the tension building, like the pressure before a storm. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Everything he thought he knew about his life, the woman he'd married, the world he controlled, was crumbling around him. "Ellie," Richard said quietly, "how do you know it was poison?" "What exactly did you hear her say?" Eli's eyes darted to Sarah as if seeking permission to speak. She was standing rigid, her posture a perfect mask of anger and fear. Finally he answered, his voice barely above a whisper. "She said it would be easy, that you'd never suspect her. She said it was just a matter of time before you'd trust her again. Then she'd do it." Richard's mind raced. The words hit him like a slap. He trusted her. He built everything he had with Sarah by his side. But now, what Eli was saying, the pieces were starting to fit together in a way he didn't want to acknowledge. "Richard, stop this nonsense," Sarah said sharply, stepping forward. "You're listening to a child who knows nothing about us. What, are you really going to believe this kid over me?" But Richard couldn't shake the image of Sarah's cold smile earlier, her eyes flicking to the wine bottle before they'd sat down to dinner. He remembered how she'd almost seemed to urge him to drink it faster, to enjoy the moment. The boy's words rang in his ears. Asterisk, she said it was just a matter of time. Asterisk time. Was that what she had been waiting for all along? The right moment? A sudden feeling of dread settled over him. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. And the more he tried to make sense of it, the more the feeling grew. The questions piled up faster than the answers could keep up. Who was the man in the gray car? Had Sarah really been planning this? Was she capable of something so vile? Eli's eyes met Richard's, his expression no longer filled with fear, but something more urgent. She's planning something bigger. Tonight was just the beginning, Eli warned, his voice trembling with anxiety. Richard turned to Sarah, his hands clenched at his sides. "What is he talking about?" he demanded. The words felt like they weighed a ton. She didn't answer. Instead, her lips twisted into a half smile, a smile that made Richard's blood run cold. "You'll find out soon enough," she whispered. And in that moment, the truth became painfully clear. He had no idea just how far this betrayal reached. But he was about to find out. Richard's pulse quickened at Sarah's words, but before he could respond, a sudden sound interrupted the silence, a low, distant thud. The sound seemed to come from the hallway, followed by hurried footsteps. His mind raced. The house wasn't supposed to be this alive at this hour. The staff had gone home. The security team was posted at the gates. No one was supposed to be here, especially not this late. "Who's there?" Richard called out, his voice sharp, but no one answered. He turned to Sarah, but she was already backing away, her expression now one of genuine concern. "I told you, Richard, you don't know who you're dealing with." "You're in over your head," she whispered, her tone trembling for the first time that night. The words felt like a confession, but before Richard could piece them together, the door to the dining room slammed open. Standing in the doorway, framed by the dim light, was a tall figure, a man Richard didn't recognize. Dressed in a dark suit, he wore a cold, almost mechanical expression as he stepped into the room, his eyes flicking between Sarah and Richard. "Do you know him?" Richard asked, voice tight, but Sarah was already shaking her head, her hand gripping the edge of the table as if it were her only lifeline. The man stepped forward, his movements deliberate. "Richard Langston," he said, his voice steady. "We've been waiting for you." Richard's heart skipped a beat. Waiting for me? For what? He felt a chill creep up his spine. This wasn't just about Sarah anymore. There was something bigger at play, something far darker. "I'm afraid," the man continued, "the real game is just beginning." Richard's mind whirled. Who was this man? Why did he seem so sure of himself, so confident? And why was he talking about a game? The realization hit him hard. He wasn't just dealing with a betrayal. This was something much more complicated and dangerous. As the man moved closer, Eli suddenly spoke up again, his voice filled with a strange urgency. "You have to stop her now, before it's too late." But the man only smiled, an expression that sent a chill down Richard's back. "It's already too late," he said softly, his eyes never leaving Richard's. "This is just the beginning." The tension in the room reached its peak. Richard felt like the walls were closing in on him. Whatever Sarah had been planning, whatever role this man played, it was about to explode. And he had no idea what part he was meant to play in it all. Eli backed away, looking up at Richard with a mixture of fear and pity. "Get out while you still can," the boy warned, his voice barely a whisper. But Richard wasn't sure if it was too late for that either. The room seemed to freeze. The man's words hung in the air like a heavy fog, pressing down on Richard's chest. "It's already too late." Those simple words churned Richard's stomach. His mind scrambled, trying to process the chaos, but nothing made sense. He glanced at Sarah. Her face was pale, her eyes distant, almost resigned. Richard's breath hitched. "What are you talking about?" His voice cracked with the weight of desperation. He couldn't trust anyone anymore, not even Sarah. The man in the suit stepped closer, his cold eyes scanning the room as if he were sizing up the pieces of a puzzle. "You think this is about your wife, don't you?" he said softly, almost mocking. "Sarah's just a player in a much larger scheme. She's been playing her part well, but the real story—" He paused, and for a brief second, the faintest hint of a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "The real story is about you." Richard's mind reeled. Asterisk about me. Asterisk, what could he possibly mean by that? He turned toward Sarah, but her face had gone blank, empty. She didn't even meet his eyes. His world tilted, and for the first time, he felt utterly alone. Eli's voice cut through the haze. "You don't understand yet, do you?" The boy's eyes were wide with fear, and Richard could sense the urgency in his tone. "They're using you. All of this. It's been planned from the start." Suddenly, everything clicked. The mysterious man, the strange behavior from Sarah, Eli's warning. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was about control. Richard wasn't the target. He was the pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. A rush of cold realization washed over him. "You set me up," Richard said, his voice barely a whisper. "This whole thing, it's all been a lie." The man smiled, a dark, satisfied grin. "Not just a lie. A asterisk strategy asterisk. Sarah and I." He gestured to Sarah, who remained silent. "We've been working together for a long time. The plan was never about poisoning you, Richard. That was just the first step." Richard's heart pounded in his chest. "What plan? What are you talking about?" Before the man could answer, there was a loud crash from the hallway, followed by the sound of multiple footsteps. Richard's head snapped toward the door, his heart racing. But before he could react, the man raised a hand, signaling for silence. The door swung open, and another figure appeared in the doorway. This time, it was a woman. She was tall, dressed in a sleek black outfit, and her face was eerily familiar. Richard's stomach churned as he recognized her. It was Asterisk Maria Asterisk, his long-lost sister, the one he had thought was dead. His world spun out of control. Sarah wasn't his only betrayer. His own sister, who he'd mourned for years, was standing in the doorway smirking. "I should have known," Richard muttered, his voice hoarse. "You were always watching." Maria stepped forward, her smile widening. "Oh, Richard, you really thought you were in control of your life. You've been our puppet from the start. And now it's time for you to finally understand your place in this." The walls closed in, the weight of the conspiracy pressing down on Richard with an intensity he couldn't escape. But just as it seemed like everything was lost, Eli took a step forward, his voice shaking. "You don't have to do this," he said, his words full of defiance. "I won't let you." Richard turned to Eli, his mind still racing, but now a flicker of hope sparked inside him. The boy might be small, but there was something fierce about him, a will to fight. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance to stop this madness. But as the man in the suit moved to speak, Maria's hand shot up, signaling for quiet. "Enough. We're done here." For a moment, everything was still. Richard's eyes met Sarah's, his heart heavy with the betrayal he still couldn't fully comprehend. But then, in the most unexpected turn of events, Sarah whispered, "I never wanted this. You have to believe me." And with that, the door slammed shut behind them, leaving Richard standing in the center of the room, more lost than ever, as Eli's voice echoed in the distance. "It's not over. Not yet." Richard stood alone in the room, the weight of everything that had happened crashing down on him. His mind spun with questions, but there were no answers left. The door had slammed shut behind them, Sarah, Maria, and the man in the suit, vanishing into the night. He thought of the years he'd spent trusting the people closest to him, only to discover they had been playing him all along. The betrayal was deeper than he could have ever imagined. But as he stood there, the faint sound of Eli's voice echoed in his mind. "It's not over. Not yet." A sense of clarity slowly began to settle over him. Eli had been right. This wasn't just about poison or about Sarah. This was a much larger web of manipulation and control, something Richard could never have seen coming. His family, his own blood, had used him as a pawn in a game of power that stretched far beyond his reach. But he wasn't done. Not yet. Richard knew he couldn't let this go. He wouldn't be a victim in their game. He had the resources, the power, and the will to uncover the truth and take back control of his life. The pieces of the puzzle were still scattered, but now, for the first time, he saw them clearly.